Hi, my name is Rocky. I am the Aztlan Youth Brigade Chair, and I'm here with Jesse Constancio. Jesse, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jesse Constancio, and I'm with the Chicano Park Steering Committee and with the Chicano Park Museum.
All right, cool. So, one of the first questions I have for you is what has your journey in the park looked like overall?
Wow, I if I look back and I reflect, it's just um, as a young activist coming here to go to school, and the first time I went to Chicano Park, I was I couldn't believe that we actually had taken a piece of land, Raza. And over the years, I worked with a lot of different organizations, Committee on Chicano Rights, in Del Barrio, and we always supported the park. But actually, it wasn't until about 20 years ago that I became involved on more of a day-to-day basis. And I would say that was primarily because of Tommy Camarillo. I, being my involvement in the movement, had a tremendous amount of respect for the sacrifices that people made, and I was in awe of how dedicated and how hard she worked, and committed myself about that time to try to support her on a day-to-day basis. And as I look back, I can see how the park has gone from, I remember in the early days when it was just the bare pillars, um, not just the mural, but everything from the playground to the kiosco, but more importantly, the activities that take place in the park now. Especially with the danza. To me, that elevated us to another level. Went from just being a place where we hung out to really becoming a spiritual place, and that also led to the growth of a lot of us. In terms of opening our minds. So I'll always be grateful for the opportunity I've had to work with the park.
So, you touched on the activism piece, so I want to ask you, how did you feed the fire of activism? Like, how did it range from when you went from a kid to a teenager to an adult all the way up until now?
Well, I've been very lucky to be surrounded by really good people. You know, good mentors over the years. Opportunity to work with different people from Cesar Chavez to Jorge Gonzalez, Herman Baca, um, to work with those organizations and learn, to work here in our community with a lot of just grassroots efforts, you know, whether it was around the lowrider community or immigration issues or fighting against police brutality. Um, One of the things is that, yeah, you're right. It's gone from being a kid to midlife and then older. It's always been the same in terms of trying to resist those things that oppress us as a community. Those things, times have changed, but people have not. The dogs, the snakes, and the rats are always going to be out there. I think it's uh, that to see the struggle continue the way it uh, has been really an experience. And I'm really, like I've said earlier, and you heard me say plenty of times, Rocky, really, as an elder, encouraged to see the energy and the intellect of so many young people such as yourself. I know that our future is in good hands.
And one of the questions I want to ask is, what do you see for the future of Chicano Park from your own point of view?
I think I need to ask you that question. Okay, I'm in the fourth quarter of this game. Luckily, it's not the 2 minute drill yet. Hopefully, so the future of of this park is what you and the other young people see it to be. Our goal and our dream was to keep that piece of self-determination alive. And I'm proud to say that I've been a part of that to help keep, on some of the day-to-day stuff that goes on. But no, the future of the park really is in the hands of our young people, and I see how eager you are to learn, how good you are at using the resources you have available to you, and very appreciative of the respectful way that you go about doing this. So I think that the future of the park is in good hands. Um, I just, if I had anything to say that I wish to see happens with the park, that would be more along the lines of people. I hope more people see the value of the park. I think more people. I hope more people see the importance of being a steward of the park, not just to come to the park and watch murals or to watch lowriders to have tacos, but to understand that that's our park, that that's our land, and that anytime anybody does that, that somebody has to stand up and say something. And quite frankly, not enough of us do now. You know, Lucas doesn't have a problem, not because he likes doing it, but if somebody is disrespecting the park, he's going to go over and let them know, and he do it in a way, in a firm way, but in a way that doesn't escalate things. It's just, hey, that's not acceptable here, and we need more people like that, more people that are willing to go out and do those type of things. People like Tommy, myself, Chunky, or Isabel that have been around here forever, and have done and taken on that needs to be passed on to the younger people, and it's not easy. It's not easy to deal with the uncomfortable things. It's not easy to deal with people who don't want to hear it, but you have to have it in your heart. You know what? This is a sacred piece of land, and I'm not going to let anybody disrespect it. So I'm confident you guys will do that.
It means a lot to us, especially because we are still, essentially, in a way, we're growing up. So it's really interesting to see all the elders that we have behind us, all the elders that are willing to sit here, that are willing to do the interviews and willing to talk about their experiences. And it means a lot in general that they're proud of us, because we don't know what we're doing. We're following in the footsteps that you guys have left for us. We're following in the foundation that we're also going off of what we hear. So self-determination is something that's really big for all of us. And we're trying to keep it going as much as possible. Whenever we do something, we try to do it from the Plan de Aztlan. So it's really interesting to hear that you see us as the future. And we are, but it still hasn't clicked for a lot of us that we are the next step. Like, what happens? Like, what are we going to do to keep going with it? And I know you said you were around junior high when you started getting more into the activism.
Mm-hmm.
So what really, like, drew you into the park? What was that moment for you that you decided, okay, I'm going to stay here?
Well, it's like I said. I mean, when I took the next leap, it was because of Tommy. But initially, it was here again around the whole idea of self-determination, the whole issue of the land, the whole issue that we had a place where we could come together and deal with our common concerns. And also, a big part of it also was a place of pride where we can come and say, this is who we are. And we're doing this in a good, positive way. Mm-hmm. But to get back what you said a minute ago, Rock, we didn't know either. Okay, and you have a lot of resources, and you wisely use them. I think as a people, as a community, we've learned a lot and we've grown a lot. And I think that you and the others, that are part of the Youth Brigade is an example of that. It tells me that it wasn't wasted time. That the future is bright. The other part of it too, I think, is myself as an organizer. The park has always been the epicenter of activism. Yeah. Whether it's an immigration march or whether it's protests against the police, or the park is recognized throughout San Diego as a place that belongs to us. If we're going to talk about where the raza is going to get together, and there's no knock on anybody else, but the first thought that comes to everybody's mind is, hey, well, if this has to do with Chicano, let's get together at Chicano Park.
Yeah.
And to the point now where you have to be a little careful because we're getting people that aren't quite Chicanos who who think they have the same privilege, and that's where being the steward of the park gets involved in it. I was very fortunate that the movement was coming along at the time that it did. You know, if I'd have been born a few years earlier or a few years later, my life would have been completely different. The cliques were always there, but when the movement started, it became about carnalismo, about respecting each other and understanding that we all had a common oppressor, and that it was going to take a common collective effort on our part to make that happen. And that started with recognizing each other in the ways that others did not recognize us. And I'd have been born a few years later, I would have got hung up in all the awful period that a lot of young people went through, was the whole drug scene and the so-called gang violence that was planted in our neighborhoods. And so I think I was very lucky to live during a time when there was unity and when there was a collective consciousness that we as a people had to better ourselves, that we couldn't depend on people from outside to do that for us. Yeah. And that's why they call it a struggle. It's been hard.
And you said that you've been organizing your whole life. Like, you grew up watching people organize, you grew up wanting to be an organizer, and what did organizing teach you and raise you to do? And how did it affect, do you think if you hadn't started organizing at the age you did, would you be a completely different person than you are now?
Wow, I've thought about that. I probably would have been rich. No, just kidding. But that's not who I am, and I'm glad. I'm thankful for the movement for giving me that direction, giving me that direction. And see, through the consciousness of the movement, that understanding that like we talked a little about earlier today about this being bigger than any one of us as an individual. This is not about a person. This is not about a place. It's about a people, a community, and a struggle to get to a better place, a more just, more humane place for our children to grow up in. More equitable in the sense of us have access to opportunities that we've been denied for way too long. And saying that, I guess, gets back to answer your question. That's one of the things that I think motivated me as a young man, is that growing up in the projects, growing up single parent, growing up with the holes in my shoes and not always something to eat, to see that there was a way that people didn't have to live like that we could get to a better place. And I use this as an example. It's completely away from what we're talking about. I think, growing up poor, we had, in those days there were commodities. And you stand up in a big line and they give you a bag of food, and then it wasn't even really food. It was like powdered eggs, and powdered milk, and powdered mashed potatoes. Everything was powder. It's called commodities, government commodities. And man, we got so sick of that stuff. A group of mothers in the area started a group called the Welfare Rights Organization, and like I said, our picket sign said, we want milk from a cow, we want eggs from a chicken, and that led to food stamps. And food stamps led to the card they got now. You don't have to be
the EBT.
EBT. Yeah. You don't have to stand in line. You walk into the store like a regular person, put your credit card in and walk out. Mm-hmm. And when I see that, I think, it worked. That shame that we had, that humiliation that we had, in some ways has been eased, but we're far away from where we need to be. We should be in a position where if we had the means to get access to good jobs, which starts with having access to a good education. Those are areas that we still need to really, really work on. We need to work towards having safe communities for our young people. The police are like the Gestapo in this area. A lot of communities. The other day, Um, a policewoman felt like she was disrespected, and what happened was is that she puts out a call, and then within no exaggeration, within 3 minutes, there were 8 patrol cars in the park. Now, when that young man got killed in the park, okay, they ain't gonna show up the first time. Second time, they showed up as a riot squad, you know, and so when we need help, they're nowhere to be found, and when they do come around, we end up getting harassed. You know, I'm a law-abiding citizen. You know, I pay my taxes. I don't break any laws. You know, I'm not gonna say I never did as a young man, but I don't break any laws. Yet, every time a policeman pulls behind me, I still get that knot on my stomach, knowing that my life can be changed like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about dead. I get up on trumped up charges. You know, I don't do real well with arrogant people getting in my face, and that just seems to be the mentality a lot. But the park has also been a part of that resistance to that, and a symbol of that resistance. And it's also, I think, a reason why a lot of you young people are still a part of it. They come along and you say, you know what? Why is it so important to them? And you picked up that vendetta. So yeah, that's why I keep saying I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And I am, Brock, very proud of you.
Thank you. One of the original question I had was, did the park desensitize you in any way? And now I want to switch it. Do you think the park is slowly desensitizing us as Raza to feeling okay with calling the cops instead of feeling like if we call the cops we're gonna lose our lives?
No, I think au contraire. I think the park has made us aware that we can't rely on them to resolve our problems for us.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that people don't call the cops unless they feel like their life is threatened.
Yeah.
It's an absolute last resort.
Yeah, and I want to interrupt you real quick to say, do you think that because of that experience that everyone has, it's a shared experience around here, is that why our self-determination is so strong now for each other? To know that you can call on someone else instead of using that as a last resort.
Well, I think that it's helped us in the sense that I think younger people today are a lot more in touch with reality. And that reality is, you know, that some people who try to act like they're your friends are not your friend, you know, and that young people are recognizing that, you know, through watching elders operate, that we're not gonna kowtow and run. You know, we're not confrontational, but we're not gonna run. You know, we're not gonna be intimidated, and we're quite frankly sick and tired.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, sick and tired of being treated as second-class citizens. And I think the park is also a place where people who don't think about that on a lot of you know, day-to-day basis, when they come to the park, they're reminded that either this is our home. And why was this brought about? Because our community got tired of getting lied to. You know, they try to go through the process, they try to do what they're told they're supposed to do, and they get nothing. It wasn't until one, people's political level of consciousness was raised, and two, the community reacted and came together on a common cause to say, you know what, we're tired of being lied to, ya basta, we're here, we're not going anywhere. And then that's the easy part. The hard part comes to make that actually happen in the park.
Yeah.
So all the things that we have in the park that we've had to fight for, you see, we fight, you know, we've had to, you know, people were talking, it's obvious that we've had to fight to get the kiosko and the playgrounds and the toilets. But what's not so obvious to the people is that, you know, we also have to fight to get toilet papers and garbage cans and just sprinkler heads and things that every other park is totally oblivious to. Those services exist everywhere except here. And a lot of that is because of the racism towards us. The city talks about us being the jewel of San Diego until you need something, okay? And now we're a pain in the ass.
Yeah, recently I was helping Lucas give a tour, and the one thing that caught me so off guard was the fact that we told these kids that we're the same as Balboa Park. We're a national historic landmark, and we tell them that we don't get any help from the city, and it's immediately like, oh, you don't, like why? So it's always a constant reminder that not everyone knows that everything is a struggle for us to get. And I want to ask, you've been here for so long. What keeps you in the park at this point? What what do you think of every time you want to go to the park and you're like, okay, this is why I want to keep going?
I'm so proud that we have a home. I'm so proud that we have a place that we can call ourselves, and I'm so proud that it's more than just a hangout.
Yes.
It's a cultural center. It's a spiritual center. It's a place where, you know, we can come together and and see our story.
Mm-hmm.
Not history, our story. The pillars, take us back to indigenous times. The music, from Chunky and his songs to the danzantes and the ballet folklorico and all the different groups, los veladores, all the cultural things that have happened there. When I come to the park, I reminisce on those times, and I reminisce on those that have come before us. There are a lot of people who sacrificed their lives so we could have the life that we have, and I always make that acknowledgement with my ancestors, but also I think it needs to be acknowledged with all the other people, that have gave so much, and too many to name, and afraid to name because I don't want to leave anybody out, but just so many people that have made such a large contribution to try to have so that we can have the space that we have.
And I know earlier during the training you said that I think it was Cesar Chavez planted a seed for you that you constantly think of. And what seed do you want to plant for the next generation? What is that one thing that no matter what you want us to think about?
Well,
What is the
I would say that I hope that some seeds of Constancio have been planted, and that Constancio will grow, and as that Constancio grows, that it will turn into action, and that action will turn into something that provides a better future and a better opportunity for our whole community. For it, nothing comes easy, and I want to go back about. Because some people are going to misunderstand and say, what do you mean you have to fight for everything? The city paid for those toilets. Well, we had to fight for 40 years to get them to pay for something that we should have had up front.
Mm-hmm.
Took us 40 years to get them to pay for something that we already had paid for through our taxes. Took us 40 years of bullshit, arguing and fighting over something they knew they were going to inevitably do.
Yeah.
But here it goes back to that lack of respect for our community. The lack of respect for our community translates in a lack of trust of them. And so people say, well, you got to trust them. Well, give me something to trust. If I got to fight you for everything, how am I going to trust you? How can you stand there and say that you're here to represent me? And I'm talking about our local politicians. The only time we ever see them is when they want our vote. And I think people need to understand that whole voting thing is a bankrupt system. That if we want something, and we talk about self-determination, we have to put it together ourselves. And the park is an excellent example of that.
Yes.
Of everything that we've decided as a group, why can't our kids have this? Why can't they have a playground like all the other parks? Well, you fight it, and go to all their stupid meetings and get denied and denied and denied and mad and frustrated over something that we've already paid for. We've already paid for. You don't see at other parks the number one concern of most city parks, as it should be, is safety for the community. Okay, that doesn't apply to us. We have puddles, from leaking pipes that are, that bring, all kinds of potential infestation. Totally oblivious to it. We got poles that are way overdated and need to be, lights and stuff that need to be replaced. They're not going to do it until one falls over and it, seriously hurts somebody. We have, things that, like, any other community, we have, oh no, unlike any other community, we have people that are brought here and they're a big burden on our park, okay? And even though it's the city's responsibility to deal with some of those folks, and I'm specifically speaking about the houseless people, that's a city responsibility. Now it puts us in an awkward position because we don't want to be anti-homeless, but we don't want people who to come and defecate on the murals. We don't want people to expose themselves in front of our children. We don't want people shooting drugs, in the park. And, where does this come from? Well, some of it admittedly comes, from our own communities, and that comes as it does with all communities. But what we have here is a situation that if you're in another part of town, let's say I'm over by the sports arena, okay, and there's a guy who's standing in the middle of the street screaming and hollering at himself. And the businesses around there don't like it because it's bad for business. So they call the police. The police come get them. What do they do with them? They come and drop them off at Chicano Park. And then they turn around and say, oh, well, you guys don't take care of the park. This and that's these things are all tore up. It's the people that you're bringing here that are tearing them up, And we have enough respect, enough dignity, that we're not going to make them the problem. Even though the problem is created by them, you're the one that initiated that. So we're going to put the blame where it belongs. That is the city's responsibility. It's a crime that people can't get good medical mental health. But at the park, we're committed to doing everything we can to keep our dignity, and we won't allow ourselves to go down that road.
So, even with everything that happens, there's always a want to do something and a need to do something. So what is that difference for you? The difference between, oh, okay, I'll do it, and the difference between, oh, I have to do it?
Yeah. I don't do well with have to. Okay? I don't like people telling me what I have to do.
You and me both.
Yeah, I will do just about anything you suggest. If you came to me and said, you know what, Jesse, this is a good idea. What do you think? Well, let's go try it.
Yeah.
Let's see what we can do. But if you come and tell me, you know what, you will, whoa, And see, sometimes, and it's a good question now that I think about it, because that's really the way we're treated. They're telling us what we can do and can't do. And that's what causes that resistance.
Yes. So, hold on. How long did you think it really took you to start being comfortable with the fact that you had created this space for yourself as a Chicano?
Well, I didn't create anything, and it's not really a base for me. It's for all of us. I think it was easy when the movement was popular. Everybody wanted to be a part of it. And then when things got difficult, a lot of people sold out. Yeah. And I think that kind of made me dig my heels in deeper, saying I don't want to be like them. And as time went on, things got difficult, but I have faith, I have faith that the truth and justice will prevail. I learned that from Corky Gonzalez when he talks about we shall endure. The truth will endure. It may take a while and you can suppress it, but the truth will eventually endure. So here again, we talked about earlier in our training about being on the right, being on the right side of justice, being on the right side of history. Being a part of BARC makes me feel like I'm doing that that I am on the right side of justice, on the right side of history. So, yeah, it'd be tempting to go out and make a bunch of money and get a big house and then hate myself.
Yeah, yeah. What they call the American dream. So, how does it feel 52 years later to still be on the right side?
Well, get back to you again, Rocket. You know, if you folks weren't here, I probably would feel different about this. Like I gave my life for what? You know, and it was all about trying to keep hope alive. And hope I don't go anywhere soon. But if I did, I would go in peace, knowing that it was not a waste. It was that there are plenty of people who are going to try to do the right thing. There are plenty of people who, with some education and some motivation, will realize tremendous power someday. And I hope that someday you can look back and say, you know what, we're now part of a coalition of 50 other parks and other neighborhoods and other communities, sister parks everywhere, that we become a network so that these ideas continue to grow, they continue to live, and they continue to serve the purpose that it was intended to do. That was to, to preserve our identity, our culture, our history, our ceremonies, and to be able to do it in our own way without having somebody else to do it. And I hope that the park inspires other communities to do that. And it has. It has. You got Barrio Unidos in Tucson, you got El Paso, you got Colorado, you got Denver, you got other places that are asking. Houston's another one that's talking about doing the same thing. So yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting, so there were times, I'll be honest with you, when you have to wonder, but it's in your heart, it's in your blood, and it's a love. It's a love. It's a love for my people. It's a love for the land. It's a love for our cultura. I don't want us to ever be forgotten who we were.
Yeah. And I want to thank you so much, Jesse, for your time and for sitting with me to do this interview. So thank you so much.
I thank you for inviting me, Ron.
Thank you.